My wife is determined that we're going to have a rabbit colony, so we are doing some research to find out how to do it well. Hey Provident Preppers, today we're here again with Nate Christensen at the Manti Homestead. Usually we're here looking at the greenhouse, but today we're here looking at rabbits.
I love the idea of rabbit, first of all, and having sustainable protein. So when we tried to approach this, years ago, we had all of our rabbits in traditional cages, just like normal people do. But we really like the idea of a colony. Me, for one, we have a lot of things going on the homestead, the milk cow, the goats, the chickens, the rabbits, the greenhouse. For me, I want to make it as easy as possible. And I think that our colony setup meets that number one goal. We got to make this easy because right now we're preparing for a time when we're going to actually really need it.
That makes a lot of sense because all these things take time. So finding ways to simplify and make it easy, more effective and more efficient, it's truly critical, I think.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of like our Manti Homestead channel is just saying, guys, we have 8 kids. We are involved in a very modern lifestyle, but we still feel important right now to try to practice these preps and this lifestyle for if we need it in some future day. But for now, we got to live. We have ball games, we've got dancers, we've got it all. And but we still are trying to discipline ourselves to this homestead lifestyle.
That's so awesome. It's something that I think most people could do a little bit of. Obviously, there are people in situations where they can't, but in any situation where you can, it's sometimes just a matter of finding out some information from someone like you that's doing it. And you've got your YouTube channel. You've had some successful rabbit videos on there. Tell us a little bit about how they could access those.
Yeah, so on our YouTube channel, you can go to the playlist, and one playlist is going to have a lot of videos about the greenhouse because we've got a year-round off-grid greenhouse. But another playlist is about the rabbit colony. And so I'm grateful to have this discussion because I do want to share these ideas. I think hopefully you guys, as well as your subscribers, feel free to pick and choose anything that you think would work good on your homestead and at your households.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the colony. Help us understand what that really means and how that makes it so much easier.
Yeah, so first of all, I think a colony tries to simulate how these rabbits would be living on their own in nature anyway. And I like that because when we first had rabbits and they're all up here in the hot July sun, those rabbits, I mean, they're just panting. They're so hot up in those cages, even though we're in the shade, and it just didn't seem right. The other thing that happens is a lot of times if a male rabbit, a buck, gets too hot, they actually go sterile. So your production value goes down because that buck gets too hot. In my opinion, a colony solves a lot of that problem by simply trying to get it back to a little bit more to their natural habitat. When we first set up our colony, we just had the ground level here. This is where we used to have our pigs, and the rabbits were making their own burrows. And we liked it, but we did find it got a little bit Wild West. They were doing these colonies. We had too many rabbits per square footage, and so they were collapsing each other's colonies. And the production was great. We had babies all over, but we also lost a lot of babies. And so we brought into some discipline. We started limiting our does, and we actually went and put wire down on the bottom so they couldn't burrow. So we took away a little bit of their options to burrow naturally in the ground because we wanted to get more efficient with those babies. And so what we've created, which I think is kind of unique, our colony system, we have these little hutches, which is just one of those planter tree totes. So if you have a tree and you have like the big bucket, we turn it upside down and we just cut a hole into it so they can go inside of it. But then inside of there's a 6-inch corrugated tube that goes outside of the rabbit colony. We have insulated burrows that we've made out of coolers, just out of the 20-gallon coolers that we bought at Walmart for really cheap. And what that does is it gives them that sense of privacy and security to go and have their babies and to have their nest. But the coolers are already insulated. So the coolers are buried in the ground, and they already have the foam insulation as well. So not only is it a great place for a nest box, a year-round nest box, but it's also a place where in the heat of the summer, they can simply go down and get cool back and forth. And also in the cold of the winter, they have a place that's a little bit warmer. So I think it creates a happier colony.
You talk about these ice chests. Is there like one for each doe? Do they share them? I don't know how all this works. Teach us a little bit about how you structured that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so right now we have 5 different coolers. And so we have 5 different entry points here. And in addition, we have 3 boxes that you're on here. So they can actually, if they want to, if the temperature's right outside, they might choose to be in these just little tiny other habitats as well. We have 7 mothers right now, and we have those 5 boxes and then 3 other outside boxes, and we just let them choose. So we did like the idea. Originally, we had started with 5 does, and that's why we did homemade burrows.
So Nate, talk to us a little bit about feeding and watering and how you've streamlined that to make it most effective.
Yeah, so right now, my wife, I always call her Mrs. Homestead, and my 15-year-old son are doing a lot of the daily chores for the rabbits. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to make this as efficient as possible because I'm at work and this is being done without me. One of the big things that's tough when you have a year-round setup is if you're in Utah, water freezes. And so we just simply used a chicken water with the heated base, and the rabbits love it. I mean, that thing saves you so much time and so many trips filling water on those cold winter mornings. So I would totally recommend that. The rabbits deal with it just fine. And then for feeding, that's easy. Just get anything that the food can go into. Now, the one thing that would be in addition to that is you'd notice we do have one rabbit up in the cage. We have to feed and water him the traditional way. And so I have done just one of these heated waterers for him. If we had it in cages, we'd have to have we've got 9 rabbits, so we'd have 9 of those little things to fill, and that would just be annoying. With a colony, you get rid of most of that.
Right.
But where we have chosen to have a spare buck, we always have 1 buck down here with the does. A few years ago, when there was the shutdowns and everything, we were going right into the spring, right at your peak time for breeding, so you get all these babies, and our buck died suddenly. And we couldn't find a replacement. And so we learned from that we have to have redundancies. So we have the buck that has been doing fine ever since, and it's been 3 years, but we always have a spare buck up in the cage. You can't have 2 bucks together or they create that confusion colony that Becca had so wisely taught me about, that we need more harmony.
And then do you take, say, one of your bucks died, would you then take one of your young bucks, the new babies, and replace, I guess? Yeah.
So we have little tattoos on all their ears, so we try to keep track of genetics. We're not the best at that. We're learning, but we do have them marked, so we can do that. But yeah, so currently our second buck is one of our replacements. Luckily, one of the mothers had some babies, and so we were able to replenish, and then we went and got another buck. So we had some other genetics that we brought in. Okay, so we're outside of the rabbit hutch, and let me show you where we have our insulated coolers, where we have our little rabbit nests. So all that I did with that, I just have regular plywood with some tin on top so that the water would flush away from it. And then I put some foam insulation. We just want to help this as much as possible. But the good news down here for the rabbits is we've got all of these coolers and the piping coming right into them. So these are already insulated. They're a cooler. We have 5 of them back here. So when they make their nest, we can come in and we can just lift it up very easily, reach down, pull back the fur, and see the production of the mom. And usually we can catch the mom running away and see which doe just had her litter. So we have 2 of them sitting in here right now. They're not in here to stay warm, and they're not in here having babies. They're in here to stay away from me. These boxes have multi-purpose. A place to get cool, a place to get warm, a place to get away from predators. They work really well, and they're super easy to build. We just got regular coolers. The cheaper the better, because I don't like to spend a lot of money, and just got a Sawzall. Well, first just drilled a little hole in the side to get a pilot hole, got a Sawzall, just did a 6-inch hole, and just shoved that 6-inch corrugated tubing right into it. And now the other thing we did on the bottom is we drilled several holes on the bottom just in case they have any waste and any water gets in there, that it will just drain out of the cooler. Because you want that to be a dry environment so that the mom can make the nest and not have wet underneath it. So Kylene wanted to know about my door. This is a very special, trademarked, patented, technological thing for the homestead of our rabbit door, because it automatically shuts. I have 8 kids, and they're not as responsible as I am. Actually, they're not as responsible as Becca is. So we have had to figure out how to make sure this thing would shut, because we've had plenty of rabbits escape And we've only got 1 acre, but it's a pain in the butt. So we just simply tied on a weight. I think it's actually old window weights, some of these pioneer homes. And we just put on a pulley system. So we just let gravity shut the door, so I don't have to rage at my kids to go shut the rabbit door, and we don't have little white bunnies. Because when the babies come, I mean, you can have 30 little babies in here and 5 or 6 mamas, and it's like, I mean, it's just like white popcorn all over the lawn. So this has saved us so much time and so much rage.
Well, thank you, Nate. Thanks for sharing all this wonderful expertise, because this is truly an awesome way to raise rabbits. I think it's healthier for the rabbits. It's easier, I think, for you. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but it seems like you've created a system that's just very easy to maintain and very easy to take care of the rabbits, and they have a happy life, and then maybe one bad day, but we won't talk about that here. What else can you tell us about this, just summing up here?
I think that's a good sum up. You know, it's worked for us. We're a very busy family, but this is doable. Even when we don't need it, it's still doable. So we're practicing for a future time where we might need it. And the thing that I like, you know, for our family, 8 kids, 2 adults, there's 10 of us. But it's still, to come out here, you have the fryers after 3 months, you know, and about 5 or 6 pounds, you have something that was produced on your own homestead. Yes, they're cute. Yes, that's a little bit hard. Our sensibilities aren't geared that way, but this has been something that's been done for hundreds of years, and it's provided, you know, emergency protein and even just sustainable protein to families for decades. And for us, you know, it's nice to not have to go out and butcher the family meat cow. And suddenly you have 800 pounds that not only you have to slaughter and you have to prepare, but then you have to preserve. With the meat rabbit, you can come out here. For us, maybe it's 2 rabbits. For you, maybe it's 1, depending on what your recipe is. But then you can go out, it's very manageable, and you can just go right from colony to the dinner table within a few hours. And it's just very practical for an emergency backup supply to protein.
Well, thank you again. This has really been an awesome, eye-opening thing for me, and I'm sure for our audience. Now for the question of the day. My wife is determined that we're going to have a rabbit colony. So I want to do that in the best possible way. So I'm looking for your expertise as well. Any thoughts, ideas, successes that you have in addition to what Nate is doing? Share it below, and thanks for being part of the solution.